The palace alarms screamed like wounded beasts. Blue lights flashed across the vast alien hall, once calm and beautiful, now filled with smoke and fear. Crystal pillars cracked as explosions shook the ground. The great palace of Aurelian, the heart of the alien empire, was under attack. Elite guards ran. They were tall, armored beings with silver crests on their helmets. For centuries, they had sworn to protect their queen with their lives. Yet now, one by one, they turned and fled through glowing corridors, their footsteps loud with panic. "The defenses are failing," someone shouted. "The outer shield is gone." Fear spread faster than fire. At the center of the hall sat the alien queen on her living throne. Her crown glowed faintly, but the light around her was fading. A deep wound burned across her side, dark blood soaking into the throne's organic surface. Still, she did not scream. She did not beg. She only watched. Her eyes followed her guards as they abandoned their posts. Some would later say it was strategy. Others would call it survival. But in that moment, it was clear, when death came, loyalty vanished. A human stood near the throne. His name was Elias Kane, a military observer from Earth. Humans were new to the Galactic Council, often ignored, often underestimated. Elias was not supposed to fight here. He was only meant to watch, learn, and report. A small communicator on his wrist buzzed. "Human unit. Evacuate immediately." A voice ordered, "This is not your war." Elias looked around. The last alien guards were already gone. Escape ships lifted off outside the shattered windows, leaving trails of light as they fled the burning city. He looked at the queen. She sat alone. Another explosion shook the hall. Pieces of the ceiling fell. The great doors at the far end of the chamber began to bend inward under heavy force. Something powerful was trying to enter. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. He had seen this before. Not this place, not these beings, but this feeling, the moment when everyone chose to save themselves. The moment when someone was left behind. His communicator buzzed again. Louder this time. "Last warning. Leave now or be presumed dead." Elias turned toward the exit. He took 3 steps. Then he stopped. He remembered cities on Earth that burned while soldiers ran. He remembered promises made too late. He remembered what happened when no one stayed. Slowly, he turned back. He walked to the center of the hall and stood between the queen and the broken doors. His boots echoed loudly in the empty space. The doors cracked open. Dark shapes moved behind them. The queen finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but tired. "Human," she said. Her alien words translated through his implant. "You are still here." "Yes," Elias replied. "You should flee," she said. "This is not your throne, not your people." He checked his weapon. It was old by alien standards. Simple, reliable. "Maybe," he said, "but you're still sitting there." The queen studied him closely now. Her kind believed survival was wisdom. Retreat was logic. What stood before her made no sense. "Why have you not run?" she asked. Elias took a breath. "Because someone has to stay." The doors burst open. A shockwave slammed into the hall as enemy forces poured in, tall, armored, and silent. Their weapons glowed with deadly power. Elias raised his rifle and planted his feet. Behind him sat the queen of an empire. Ahead of him came death. And while the galaxy watched its guards run, one human stood his ground. The first enemy soldier stepped through the broken doors. It was taller than any human Elias had seen before, covered in dark armor that seemed alive. Blue symbols glowed across its chest. Behind it came many more, moving in perfect silence. Elias fired. The sound of the human rifle echoed through the hall, sharp and loud. The first shot struck the enemy in the chest. The armor cracked, and the creature fell. The others stopped for a moment, clearly surprised. They had not expected resistance. Elias moved quickly. He fired again and again, aiming for joints, weak points, places where armor met flesh. His weapon was simple, but he knew how to use it. Humans had learned long ago that survival came from skill, not comfort. Energy blasts flew back toward him. One struck a pillar near his head, sending shards of crystal across the floor. Another burned past his arm, leaving a trail of heat. He did not run. Behind him, the alien queen watched in silence. Her people believed fear was something to avoid. Humans believed fear was something to walk through. Elias took cover behind a fallen pillar, reloaded, and stood again. He changed position with every shot, never staying still. The enemy advanced slowly now, cautious, confused. The queen spoke softly. "You will die if you remain." Elias did not turn around. "Yeah," he said. "That happens sometimes." She did not understand his tone. It was calm, almost casual. A blast struck Elias's shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Pain burned through his arm. He gritted his teeth and forced himself up. Blood ran down his sleeve, but his grip stayed firm. The queen rose slightly from her throne. "Human, your life has value." "So does yours," Elias answered. She had never heard that said to her so simply. As the enemy moved closer, Elias reached into his belt and pulled out a small device. Human-made. Cheap. Ugly. He threw it. The device exploded in a cloud of thick smoke and sound. Enemy sensors failed. Their formation broke. Elias charged forward. He fired at close range, struck armor with his rifle, and used fallen weapons without hesitation. He fought like someone who had already accepted the cost. Between attacks, memories flashed through his mind. Cities on Earth. Evacuations that came too late. People left behind because saving them was not efficient. Humans learned their lessons the hard way. The enemy commander stepped forward at last. Its armor was marked with deep red symbols. Its voice filled the hall, cold and strong. "Human," it said, "stand aside. This queen is not worth your extinction." Elias laughed, short and bitter. "Funny," he said. "That's what everyone says before they're wrong." He fired again. The enemy commander raised a shield. The shot bounced away. It lifted its weapon, charging a blast powerful enough to end everything. The queen stood fully now. She stepped down from her throne and moved beside Elias. Her injury slowed her, but her presence changed the air itself. Ancient power surrounded her. "You should not stand," Elias said quietly. "This isn't your fight." She looked at him, her glowing eyes steady. "It became my fight when you chose to stay." The enemy hesitated. Across the galaxy, hidden sensors captured the moment. Screens lit up in command rooms and distant worlds. Alien leaders watched in silence. A human, bleeding and small. A queen, wounded and proud. Standing together. The enemy commander lowered its weapon slightly. "This changes nothing," it said. Elias raised his rifle again. "Maybe not," he replied, "but it changes us." The hall shook as more enemies poured in. Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward once more. He was tired. He was afraid. But he was still standing. The battle inside the palace was no longer unseen. Hidden sensors, forgotten by fleeing guards, continued to transmit. Across the alien empire, screens began to light up. Military command centers, civilian towers, even distant worlds. They watched in silence. They saw a ruined throne room filled with smoke and broken crystal. They saw enemy soldiers advancing without mercy. And they saw something that should not exist. A human still fighting. Elias moved like a shadow between fallen pillars. His arm burned with pain, but he ignored it. He used alien weapons when his rifle ran dry. He threw debris, activated broken defense panels, and turned the palace itself into a trap. The enemy adapted. They always did. They changed tactics, spreading out, attacking from above and below. Energy blasts burned the floor near Elias's feet. One struck his leg, dropping him to one knee. The queen cried out softly. Elias forced himself up again. On distant worlds, alien viewers leaned closer to their screens. Their kind valued survival above all else. Retreat was wisdom. Sacrifice was waste. So why did the human keep standing? The enemy commander watched carefully now. This was no longer just an attack. This was a test. "Human," the commander said, its voice echoing through the hall. "You are outmatched. Your death serves no purpose." Elias wiped blood from his face. "You're wrong," he said. "It serves a very human one." He triggered another human device. The palace lights went dark. For a moment, everything was black. Then red emergency lights flickered on. The enemy forces hesitated. Elias did not. He attacked from the darkness, striking fast, retreating, then striking again. He used noise, smoke, and movement. He made himself unpredictable. The queen watched closely. Her people believed strength came from power. Humans believed it came from will. A blast caught Elias inside and threw him across the floor. He hit the ground hard and did not move. Across the galaxy, many believed it was over. The queen stepped forward, placing herself between Elias and the enemy. She raised one hand. Ancient symbols burned into the air, glowing gold and blue. The room vibrated with old power. She had not used this strength in centuries. The enemy froze. "She bleeds," the commander said. "She will fall." "Perhaps," the queen replied calmly. "But not alone." Elias stirred. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself up again. A wave of disbelief spread across the watching worlds. He should not have been able to stand. But he did. The queen looked at him. Something new in her eyes. Not pity, not curiosity. Respect. "You are broken," she said softly. "So is the room," Elias answered. Still standing, though. The enemy commander took a step back. This had never been the plan. This attack was meant to measure humanity, it admitted, to see if your kind would bend or break. Elias raised his weapon one last time. "Now you know." Silence filled the hall. Then something unexpected happened. Alien ships appeared in the sky outside the palace. Not fleeing ones, but returning ones. Guards who had run now turned back. Soldiers who had watched the broadcast felt something unfamiliar. Shame, courage, resolve. The enemy commander hissed in anger. "This changes nothing," it said. The queen's voice echoed across the hall and the galaxy beyond. "It changes everything." As reinforcements poured in, the enemy forces began to retreat. Elias finally lowered his weapon. He swayed on his feet, and for the first time since the alarms began, he allowed himself to fall. But this time, he did not fall alone. Elias woke to silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind that comes after destruction. The palace hall was still broken, still burned, but the fighting had stopped. Smoke hung in the air like a final breath that refused to leave. He tried to move. Pain answered him from every part of his body. He was lying on the cold floor, his vision blurred. Shapes moved above him. Alien soldiers, medics, machines humming softly. He tried to sit up, but strong hands gently pushed him back down. "Do not move," a voice said. The queen stood nearby. She was no longer on her throne. Her crown was dim, her posture weakened, but she stood tall. Blood still marked her side, yet her eyes were clear. "You live," she said. Elias managed a weak smile. "Guess I didn't do too bad." She looked at him for a long moment. "You should not have survived." "Yeah," he said. "People say that a lot." Around them, alien guards avoided his eyes. These were the same ones who had fled. Their armor was clean, but their faces were not. Shame followed them like a shadow. The queen turned to them. "You returned." "We did," one guard replied, lowering his head. "Because we saw." She nodded slowly. Elias felt the weight of the moment, even through his pain. He had not meant to inspire anyone. He had only stayed because leaving felt wrong. The enemy had retreated, but the damage remained. The palace was broken. Lives were lost. And yet, something else had been built in that ruin. The queen stepped closer to Elias. "Human," she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "You stood when my empire did not." Elias frowned slightly. "Wasn't trying to make a point." "That is why it matters," she replied. She raised her hand, and the room grew quiet. Every guard, every medic, every watching camera focused on her. "By the authority of the throne," she declared, "I name Elias Kane, kin of the crown." Gasps echoed through the hall. This title had never been given to an outsider, not in thousands of years. Elias blinked. "That sounds serious." The queen allowed herself a small smile. "It is permanent. His smile faded. I didn't do this for rewards. I know, she said. That is why you receive one. Her strength faltered suddenly. The queen staggered. Before anyone else could move, Elias reached out and grabbed her arm, steadying her despite his injuries. For a moment, the human supported the queen of an empire. The image spread across the galaxy. Later, many would say this was the moment everything changed. Medics rushed to the queen's side. Elias was gently pulled back, his body finally giving in. His vision darkened again, but this time there was no fear. He had done what he could. As he slipped into unconsciousness, distant voices echoed in his mind. Reports came in from across the empire. Allies offered aid. Neutral worlds asked questions. And for the first time, the word human was spoken with respect. When Elias woke again, he was aboard a medical ship. His wounds were wrapped, his pain eased. A small screen beside his bed showed stars passing quietly outside. The queen appeared on the screen. You stood alone, she said, and because of that, you will never stand alone again. Elias closed his eyes, exhausted. He had stayed because someone had to. And now, the galaxy would never forget the cost of standing. The war did not continue. That alone shocked the galaxy. After the attack on the palace, enemy fleets withdrew beyond known space. No final strike came. No hidden weapons were revealed. It was as if the universe itself paused to understand what had happened. Across star systems, the same image played again and again. A wounded alien queen standing beside a bleeding human, neither running, neither bowing. Elias Kane became a name spoken far beyond Earth. When he recovered enough to walk, he was invited back to the palace. Repairs were still ongoing. Scars remained on the walls, left untouched on purpose. They were reminders. The queen waited for him in the rebuilt hall, not on her throne, but standing. You change how my people see strength, she said. Elias shifted uncomfortably. I just didn't want to leave you alone. She nodded. That is not weakness. That is the rarest form of power. New treaties followed quickly. Humanity was no longer placed at the edge of councils or ignored during debates. They were listened to, not because they were feared, but because they were trusted. Other alien races asked questions. Why do humans fight when logic says retreat? Why do they protect those who cannot repay them? The answers were simple. Because humans choose to. Because standing for someone else matters. Back on Earth, Elias was offered honors, promotions, and wealth. He refused most of them. He returned to service, not as a symbol, but as a soldier. He carried the title kin of the crown, though he rarely spoke of it. The queen kept her promise. Whenever humans faced threats, alien ships arrived first, not as rulers, as allies. Years later, new recruits, alien and human alike, were taught the same lesson in military academies across the galaxy. They were shown the recording. They were told the story. When everyone fled, one human stayed. And because of that choice, empires learned something they had forgotten. Survival is not the highest goal. Honor is. The story of Elias Kane did not end with statues or songs. It ended with something better. A change in how the galaxy thought. Where once humans were seen as fragile, they were now seen as dangerous in a different way. Not because of their weapons, but because of their will. Because when humans give their word, they stand by it, even when it costs them everything. In the rebuilt palace hall, a single plaque was placed near the throne. It did not list victories or titles. It held only a simple message, translated into every known language. Here stood one human when no one else would. And the galaxy remembered.